Hi everyone, Paul O'Sullivan here. Just making another hopefully short video. I'm celebrating my second year stroke anniversary today. I cannot believe it that this day 2 years ago was the very start of a stroke. And it happened, I was in the divorce courts and I was looking after someone who had mental health problems as well. So when I came home, the divorce had been deferred to another day and I came back. I was very stressed that day, couldn't shut it off. I do a lot of stress and anxiety management over the years and I couldn't shut it off, whatever was happening with me. And I came back and I was talking to the person I was caring for, and I felt a zap right into the middle of my head, like something got switched off. And I felt hugely fatigued and nauseous. I went to bed. The very next day, I didn't feel well. Third day after that it started on the 15th, went on to the 16th, the 17th. My arm started going numb. And then that evening, I went to bed just to rest. And then by that evening, I was fully paralyzed, leg and arm. And then on the Thursday morning, I actually finally got myself into the hospital. The way my brain was affected, the basal ganglia, it was an ischemic stroke, which is a clot. And there was an incidental aneurysm as well, which is still there. So I couldn't make the decision to actually go until the very last minute. I had a thought in my head that, if you lie here any longer, you'll die. And that was enough to kind of say, please, please phone the ambulance for me. Help me out here. I don't know what to do. I didn't want to go into the hospital. I'd never been in hospital for anything except giving birth to kids. So I couldn't, the thoughts of having to go in and go through all the prodding and the blood tests and everything. But anyway, I got in. I was in there for 3.5 weeks, fully paralyzed, not able to get in or out of bed myself, not able to wash or dress myself, trying to manage with one arm, one leg. Very, very difficult. Um, Completely dependent on everyone. And then finally, after 3.5 weeks, I was transferred to rehabilitation unit, and I was really getting frustrated. I was trying to stay positive. I had remembered a lot of my training from when I was years ago. I was a hypnotherapist and a life coach and a Reiki practitioner. I'd done a lot of research on illness and causes of illness and the power of our mind to create illness and the power of our mind to, make things better. If not heal it, but certainly to make things better. So luckily I remembered some of that stuff in the second week. So I started motivating myself. So while I was in rehabilitation, I was setting goals all the time from the second week of the stroke in the hospital right into rehabilitation. I kept trying to dress myself. I kept trying to wash myself from the sink. I kept trying to do everything. And finally, when I got out of P-Mount, I was actually, with difficulty now, I'm not going to tell you any of this was easy, but I actually was managing to wash and dress myself, which was wonderful. And that's why I focused on my arm first, because I reckoned it would give me the greatest amount of independence. So I just want to show you where I'm at. I've made other videos, and you might see, and my arm didn't fully go right over, but I actually got, this is my second year now, and I'll go right back. I can look. Now, I'm not going to tell you the arm is normal. It's not. It probably never will be. It still feels a bit heavy, less heavy than it did. Um, Still has that, it's a nicky kind of a feeling. I don't know how to describe it. It makes you feel like you don't want to use it. I still have that by times, but I make sure I'm saying this in case anyone's watching who has had a stroke or maybe is caring for someone who had a stroke. Use it or you will lose it. Okay. When I started setting little goals. When my hand was curled up like that, which it was, I used to use a rolled up towel. Someone gave me one in the hospital, an OT or something gave me one, and I had my arm over it to stop it going in on itself. And I used to leave it resting on that, and I would gently try and straighten the fingers. And then my family came along and they said, if you're really doing so well, make an okay sign. So because my hand was like that anyway, it was kind of, you know, easy enough to stretch it into an okay sign. So I started doing videos, sending them to my family. So I got it to do and holding it in place. Now, obviously, I made the okay sign, and then they said to me, well, because they had a good sense of humor and they helped me, they really did help me. They said, if you're really getting better, you'll do the two finger sign. So I stretched my fingers out and I did the two finger sign, managed to get it, straight enough to do that. After time now, it took a while, because the sense of humor kind of egged me on a bit. And then finally it was the one finger salute. Could I do that? So I started doing that, things like that. Then I set little goals for myself to try and open sugar sachets and to try and open toothpaste. So I made every effort. I mean, sometimes I had to get people to hold me. If I was in the bathroom, I was holding on with my good arm, my non-affected arm, onto the Sarah Steady, and I couldn't move my left arm, so I would get someone to hold my shoulder so I wouldn't fall, because if I stood, I couldn't stand. I'd fall straight over. They tried to sit me on the bed. I fell, fell over a couple of times. Didn't hurt myself. Now they caught me in time, but I literally couldn't sit up. That's where I was. I couldn't stand up by myself. So I had to get people to help me become more independent. So I got them to hold on to me while I would try with my left hand. It was really difficult, but I would try, and then I'd use my non-affected arm to help move my arm as well. And I did a lot of exercises as well. Anyway, eventually I was able to open toothpaste tubes and stuff like that. And as time went on, it was hard trying to get the top off a deodorant, a deodorant bottle. So it went on like that. That's what I kept doing to get my arm right. Now I'll do another video on those exercises again. But finally I got out of rehabilitation and I got home, and I was pushing myself every day. I was doing the rehabilitation exercise. I made up my own little chair yoga system. And I was doing very well. And about a year and a half later, I was, getting onto the stick. I had actually got out a few times with the stick instead of the rollator. I was trying to get myself there, and then I had a second stroke in November 2025. And that set me right back. It took all the energy out. Not that I hadn't, loads of energy after the first one. I didn't. I was suffering really bad fatigue, and I still am. But after the first one, I really felt I was getting somewhere. I was walking a good amount of distance. I had a good few steps up. I had, at the most of it, got to 6,000 steps and averaging on about 4,000 a day. I was doing very well, with rollator mostly, and then with stick for a very short distance, about 2,500 steps with the stick. That's where I was at. And then the second stroke hit, and it put me right back, about a year or more in my recovery, and it affected another part of my brain. So I had no motivation. It's not that I am very motivated anyway, right? But I couldn't have the energy to be motivated. It's very hard to describe, but I just couldn't. I hadn't been doing the same chair yoga exercises because I'm trying to balance energy. Um, we've about 12 spoons of energy a day. I'll talk about this in another video in length as well, but briefly, we've about 12 spoons of energy a day. And after a stroke or two strokes, you might get up and get washed. Like here I am, dressed right, took effort to dress, put makeup on, lipstick to make myself feel good. And that can take like after the washing and dressing and the breakfast, you can have 6 spoons of energy gone out of your 12 spoons a day. And you have to rest to replenish that. So I had a cup of tea there just before, cup of peppermint tea before I did this video, so I'd have a bit of energy to do this. After this, I'll get my dinner and then go rest, and that's, you kind of have to balance it out. So I've much less energy than I did after the first stroke. Having the second one didn't help me a lot. So when I hadn't got the motivation and I couldn't, literally physically not able to do everything, if I do the exercises, then I'm not going to be able to cook my dinner. you know if I go out for a walk, all this time. Now, just to go into a bit more positive things, what I have done is I got back driving, which is wonderful. So I drive locally, just local in the area. I am not, because the fatigue does come in on top of me and I have to get home safely as well. So I've been able to go out, go get the shopping using a trolley like a rollator to hang on to that to get my shopping, and then get back home, and then I just get my dinner and then sleep. So that's what I've been doing. Or some days I can get out for a walk, but I'm not anywhere near the walking that I was after the first stroke. It set me right back. So bear with me. Take a sip of water here. I got back to doing crafts. I was able to make a necklace. I was able to do some clay work with both hands. Um, Obviously, I got back after the first stroke. My eyesight was all over the place. I got back to reading. I did that very slowly. I used to try and read one line a day, and it was like my eyesight just got double vision. It was horrible at the start, and very tiring. It's just a horrible, sick feeling in the head. It's very hard to describe unless you've actually had a stroke. You'd know exactly what I'm talking about if you've had a stroke. It's this horrible feeling in your head. But I just kept trying. So I kept trying to read a sentence a day, 2 sentences a day, 3 a day, and so on. By the time I left rehabilitation after the first stroke, I was able to read novels. That's where I was. That's it. I was so happy that I actually got that back. Other aspects of stroke, like The fatigue is terrible. Noise sensitivity, light sensitivity, all heat sensitivity, all of that, especially with this weather that we have at the moment. So instead, I love going out for a morning walk, even if I can only go a short distance. I love going out with the rollator and doing that, but it's too hot for me at the moment. So I am compensating by going out in the evening instead. So that means I have to be very careful how I use my energy during the day and to make sure I get enough rest and enough to eat, proper food, proper clean water, all of that kind of stuff to manage that. But then I have like that's for me just to get my arm back. I'm fully independent. Not walking properly. Um, I'm trying. I'm trying to shuffle across my bedroom because there's a load of things on either side. So if I fall either way, I'll fall onto the bed or I'll fall onto a desk or something. So I'm trying not to take risks, but at the same time, I have to teach my body how to walk properly again. And furniture walking apparently is not great, but I try and walk in between the furniture and just I have it there to grab onto. So I'm trying that. I'm trying to use the stick just into the kitchen, just into the bathroom, just into the hall very carefully. So I'm starting to do that. Um, so I feel I've had a very positive recovery so far. My mind is starting to come back properly. I still have a problem with issues with memory sometimes, but it is getting better. But I know about the concept of neuroplasticity, and it's just keep trying new things. Even if you're doing an exercise and you do it in sequence, change the sequence, you know, because I started doing all these holding the affected arm, to get my arm moving and stuff, and I'd have a sequence like this. So instead of doing the same movements all the time, start with this one and then go into this one, change it around because you're going to form new neural pathways. Because when you've had a stroke, the neural pathways get broken and synapses get broken, and you have to form new connections. So I'm aware of that with the walking as well. I'm trying to get back into the exercise. I started again this morning, only this morning. Now, 8 months after the second stroke, only just really got back in that I had a little bit of energy to just do a couple. Now, I didn't do a lot of repeats, just 5 for each leg. But it's just every little bit. I had to rely on not motivation this time, but consistency. And consistency means that you keep showing up for yourself when you can. And it's exhausting. And you don't feel like doing anything after a stroke. You just literally you do want to curl up and die after it. But what I'm saying, use it or you will lose it. And there is neuroplasticity. And the more you keep trying, you don't know when that tipping point is going to come. You just don't know when the tipping point is going to come. When will be the day when you actually notice? And here I am. I am enjoying making these videos because I'm looking back and I can see where I wasn't able to move my arm fully, and now I can. And maybe, gosh, now I might even get to type again at some stage. But I don't give up. Like I couldn't. I used to paint large acrylic paintings of landscapes of the local area here before the stroke, and I couldn't. I sat down to paint, and I couldn't figure out how I used to paint. I couldn't remember what brushes I used to use or what techniques. And I found that very, very upsetting. But then I said, you know what? I always wanted to try illustration. I always wanted to try watercolor and pen and ink and that. So I started getting little drawing pads and trying that, and I found I could do that. So I continued, and then I started trying other different types of paintings, like using clay. I couldn't initially use my hand for the clay, but now I can. So keep trying, just keep trying. There's also a thing, I have a thing in a drawer here as well. It's called terracotta. I'll just take one out. It's all, you can buy it in a tub. Mine is just thrown into a bag, but um, you can get this, and if you stretch your hands around it like that, see that, and you can form a thing, and you can stretch your fingers down into it, and they have different resistances. That'll help your fingers. That'll help your fingers. If you get your fingers and your hands moving, then you get some of your independence back. That's where I start. That's why my leg is the last to kind of get fixed. It was more important that I could wash and dress myself before I go mad in the head. That's what I felt like I was going to go mad in the head with all of it. Because people have the best intentions, but they're not always. I felt sometimes like they were dressing me like I was a 5-year-old and they were in a hurry. So you were getting wedges, and they were bringing you back out the shower steady from the bathroom, and I was saying, "Will you fix my knickers because I can't do it?" Do you know what I mean? Or will you stop jabbing my foot into my shoe and catching my toe on the outside? You know, so it was funny in ways, but God, it was getting so bloody annoying. You know, so and keeping your sense of humor is a must after this. You know, and not rejecting yourself. It's a horrible thing that happened, but it's not your fault and it's not your body's fault. So go kind and be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself in a nice way. And because initially when I had the stroke, I was hating everything, hating my body and hating God and everything. But now I've come into a more positive frame of mind. And I was a positive person before the stroke as well. I was trying so hard. But so I'm rambling on probably too much. I hope this gives a little bit of hope to somebody. And I know when someone says 2 years on, you're only after having a stroke, it seems like it'll never come about. But if you just keep trying little things, you know. So I'm celebrating that I'm still here after all this time, after two strokes, and I've got so far in my recovery. And I don't know how far more I will get if I get further, but I'm seeing progress still with my arm and everything like that. It's not feeling as heavy, and like I said, I'm getting somewhere with my leg. It's not 100%. I still consider myself to be partially disabled with it. I can't walk independently, and I get hugely exhausted if I try, but I am trying and I'm not giving up. And what I want to say to you is don't give up till something happens. Don't give up till you see a result. Ever. Don't ever give up on yourself. And I want you to be kind and to encourage yourself because you've been through a lot and you deserve it. So that's all I have to say today, anyway. So I wish you all a very, very blessed day and best of luck anyone else who's trying to recover from this. Mind yourself. Bye.